Cadence released a part 2, and I even got a shout out!
Huge shout out to Andrew Meredith as well for giving me a few interesting examples that we're going to take a look at later.
Of course, I need to release a part 2 as well, because, you know, I've got thoughts to add. I cannot recommend her opening section on 1-1 enough. The explanation is so much stronger than anything I've done before and falls directly in line with my thoughts. Truthfully, both of us think very much alike when it comes to music theory.
There's many examples of classical music where the tempo is rather fast and it's conducted and felt in one. Often, the phrases, the musical sentences that span across multiple measures are 2 or 4 measures long. These measures, which are functionally felt in one, despite having equal emphasis between each other only felt on the downbeat, have a melodic or harmonic emphasis every time the phrase repeats, which similarly makes me feel like I'm in 2 or 4.
As for other sections in multiples of 2, I gave examples for both 8 and 16, but Cadence shows the main problem that I have in the way that we feel time signatures.
As for 8/8 and 16/16, these just feel like syncopated Latin clave-ish patterns in 4/4 to me.
While yes, these grooves are divisible into 4 and are more like the 5/4 clave, where I would agree just writing them in forward makes sense, this is where the metrical feel is different and where I feel it's important to be aware of, keeping in mind that the metrical feel might be different from the melody and can even change. So let's take a look at some of the examples that Cadence used. Cloud Top Cruise is an example of a melody not following the grooving meter. Similar to how I said the 16 metric feel from Punch-Out and Xenoblade are used as a backing groove to a melody that doesn't follow it, it's the same thing here. That clave feel mainly serves as a forward-moving groove, but I personally cannot feel something like Melee's How to Play music as anything other than a 9/8 followed by a 7/8. But as I showed in my first video, the main theme from Melee has that groove underneath a melody that's clearly in 4. An example of meter changing is the Corneria example shown. While the beginning is in that typical 16 pattern, the last 2 measures you barely hear in her video are actually in a typical 4/4 and then a 3/3/2 8/8 pattern.
8/8 could theoretically also be any other permutation of 2s and 3s, like 3/2/3 or 2/3/3, but those seem particularly rare and I couldn't find any examples of that. Drop some in the comments if you have any though.
I'm surprised with all the Smash footage that she used, she missed the results music being 2/3/3, but hey, I've missed stuff staring at me in the face too, so...
Here, 17/8 functions as a 9/8 plus 8/8, with 3 plus 3 plus 3, plus that 3 plus 3 plus 2 rhythm we were looking at earlier. But something interesting happens in the 3rd and 4th lines. The groove slightly changes and accents these 1.5 hits in between the 8th note grid. It's one of those things where I can totally see, for this reason, calling the time signature 34/16, since there's a consistent smaller subdivision and the key accents fall between the 8th notes. But I think in the same way 3/4 can have some measures as 2 dotted quarter notes without destroying the groove. I think it's fine to call this 17.
This is an interesting example as I feel a different meter. Playing right before this section, you hear the percussion hammer in this meter. And to me, that fits for the whole section. I'm one to say that the meter can change all the time, giving music life, but this was a funny one to me as I'm the one that only hears a single metrical feel this time around. Interesting. Cadence shows some Pokemon music for 18.8, however, the groove here doesn't feel like 18, and the 18 is there for a different reason that Cadence goes through in her video, so check that out. But for me though, let's look at a groove that is in 18, Magni and Modi from God of War. Given that there are repeated accents on two specific beats, it's probably a combination of 10.8 and 8.8 like this.
So I can't really see any pattern or way to divide the measure into two smaller but happier numbers.
At least for me, it goes down to a combination of 3 instead of 2, so 7.8, 8.8, 7.8, like I showed in my first video.
Also, we still have all of these time signatures on the bounty board, so if you guys know of any tunes with any of these, post them as well, and I'll include it in part 3.
I got you covered. Here's a 20 and 25. Starting out with 25 because it was almost included. In the Phoenix Wright example for 27, if you listen to the Allegro variation, the second half removes an eighth note from each half of the sequence, giving us 25. As for 20, the track Dreadnought from RuneScape has a 7-beat metric feel, all divided into 3 except the last beat being divided into 2. Cadence said she feels this in 5/4, but my guess is her ears might be grabbing onto something different than mine. But she even said in her video that she feels those 8 and 16 examples in 4 no matter what.
As for 8/8 and 16/16, these just feel like syncopated Latin clave-ish patterns in 4/4 to me. So the thing is, I think the 4/4 mind virus in the West especially is very strong. I've always heard 4/4 equivalents as just a funny 4/4, and according to most sheet music I've seen of 8 or 16 grooves, most people agree, transcribing them in just 4/4.
So the solid and even beats of the common 4 feel could be too strong for her, and there just might not be a vaccine for that virus.
The thing is though, I hate sheet music, and time signatures are unironically not real. So if you genuinely feel the groove as 1s, 8s, or 16s distinct from an overarching 4, who am I to say you don't? Music theory is subjective, and how you hear these grooves is largely dependent on personal experience and culture.
Before wrapping this script up, I decided to look at the comments to see if there was anything worth snagging. This comment popped up and I checked out the track. It's not a new time signature, but it is a new meter. And finally, holy crap, somebody found something else over 30? This is such a legit cool sequence. Another fantastic video by Cadence that I highly recommend you check out. We get along really well and think alike when it comes to music theory, so you'll see some overlapping ideas. So Cadence, can't wait to see what you got in store for part 3.